Hello, I just want to welcome you to my webinar, Building Financial Confidence. My name is Jen Sullivan, and I started Growing Empowered because I am really passionate about helping others grow and gain the confidence they need to manage their personal finances, to feel empowered to confidently manage those finances on their own. So that is why this webinar is important to me. I am going to go ahead and get started by showing you the agenda for today and letting you know what we'll be talking about. So I'm going to start by sharing my story with you, and then we're going to chat about the power of mindset, money habits, financial anxiety, and don't worry, we're also going to talk about ways to combat it, and then some next steps for you. So let me get started by sharing a little bit about my story with you. When I was trying to plan what to share, I wasn't sure how much detail to go into, but I'm just going to give you kind of an overview of my financial history. And then hopefully that'll give you some insight into why Growing Empowered is important to me, what brought me here, and why I'm sharing all of this with you. So when I grew up, we didn't have a ton of money. And if we wanted spending money, we had to earn it. So I feel like it was starting at age 10. I did jobs at my mom's office, that office where she worked, and I made copies and did things for them to earn some extra cash. And as I became a teenager, I got more real jobs. I also did babysitting and things like that. And that money was really just meant to pay for the things that I wanted, right? My mom couldn't afford to give us a big allowance or anything like that. So if I wanted to go out with my friends or buy things or clothes or music, whatever it was, I had to earn that money. And I don't remember ever having conversations about saving. I don't remember talking about planning and setting goals. I'm sure that I saved up for things that I wanted to buy, but I don't remember ever considering that long-term saving and long-term budgeting. It was really more I'm making this money so that I can spend it. And all the way through high school, that's what I remember. I wanted graduation announcements, I earned the money to pay for them, things like that. And then when I went into college, I knew that I was going to be responsible for paying most of college on my own. And so I knew that meant money was going to be tight for me. But I had a job, I had financial aid, and I just did the best I could to make ends meet. But it was a struggle, and I worried about money all the time and not having enough. I absolutely overdrew my checking account way too many times. And then I made what was a fatal mistake for me and applied for my first credit card. They made it seem really fun, cute picture on it and everything. But what I didn't really understand was how interest worked with credit cards and how it was going to be really hard for me to pay that off. And I also didn't really consider about how the fact that I was adding an additional payment to my monthly budget, right? I already didn't have I was barely getting by. It was a struggle and a challenge. And now I was going to have to pay even more money out because I was borrowing, right? And then this unfortunately just continued into my 20s. When I graduated, I started working as a teacher, and I just did not have the skills to manage the money that I was making. And I was relying on credit cards and relying on that debt to make ends meet and to get by. And because I had those credit card payments, I didn't have enough money every month to pay for my needs and my wants, right? I was this young 20s girl who wanted to go out and have fun with friends and do all the things, and I just didn't have enough money to do it. And so I was conscious of money, and I tried to restrict my spending some. And when I say restrict, I mean to what was right for the amount of money I had, right? But it wasn't working. I didn't know what I was doing when it came to budgeting and trying to manage it all. And I also had friends who were able to travel and go out to nice restaurants and spend more money than I was able to. And so there was definitely some jealousy in that area and spending more than I should so that I could kind of keep up with all the things that they were doing. And honestly, this just really continued on for many years where I would start to get on top of things. I ended up having 2 jobs. I would get a second job and work on weekends or in the evenings. And I would start to get on top of my finances a little bit and start to get ahead and paying off that debt. And then something would happen and then I'd fall right back into that debt cycle again. And that continued for a very long time until I finally really dug in and I was like, I don't feel good about this. I'm feeling financially overwhelmed all the time. I'm feeling that anxiety every day. And I really need to do something to change this. And that's when I was able to sort of start to get on top of things. But it was a really struggle for me and I really had a hard time. And so that's kind of what brings me to share all of this with you, because I don't want people to end up where I was in that feeling. I know how stressful and overwhelming and frustrating it was. So I want to help people avoid those pitfalls and those traps. And then if you're already there and you can really relate to my story, I want to help you with some tools and tips to get out of that. Okay, so let's get started. And the first thing that I want to talk about today is the power of mindset. So mindset plays a really critical role in successfully managing our finances. The way we feel and the way we are approaching things and the thoughts that are in our mind all the time, that is powerful. And it impacts everything we do, right? Mindset is really powerful in everything we do. But when it comes to money, it really drives a lot of things. So what I want to know is, if I were to ask you, how do you feel about money? How would you answer that question? Old me would have said, money is stressful, money's overwhelming, I hate money, it makes me feel frustrated, all of those things, right? And if you asked, where did you learn those feelings? I'm not sure where I learned the feelings. I honestly think that a lot of it was just me and my life experiences, and then feeling frustrated with myself that I've gotten into that situation, and it just kind of perpetuated into this negativity, which then became my story, right? My story about money was that I wasn't good at money, I didn't know how to manage it, and all of that stuff. So what is your money story? Where did you, my arrow is turning directions here. Where did you learn about money, and where did you learn how to feel about money the way that you do? I've had the opportunity to talk with several women about money and their money story and why they feel the way they feel. And a lot of people just have kind of like mine. It's just like a gradual thing that kind of happened. Some people have a very specific incident that happened, or like a phrase or a saying that a parent or a grandparent used to say. And some people had really powerful, interesting stories. And so I'm going to share one with you just as an example. She said, I never even realized it until she was an adult. And she said, my parents hated and spoke very negatively about people who they considered to be well off, financially well off. If they saw someone driving a nice car, they'd say, oh, that person thinks they're better than us. Look at how showy they are with their fancy car, making all of us feel bad. Or if they drove through a neighborhood by beautiful houses, large homes, they would say, oh, these people, they look down on us, all of those negative things. And she didn't even realize that negative mindset about money had been ingrained in her. And as an adult now, it was keeping her from making money and managing her money and thinking about money in a positive way. So those money stories are really powerful and they impact us into the future. So my old mindset was survival. I just have to make it to the next paycheck. I was absolutely living paycheck to paycheck. I got paid monthly as a teacher, and I was just waiting for the day that I would get paid. And I remember just not spending any money for the last several days of the month, just hoping that my paycheck would, that I could hang on until the next paycheck came. And that survival mode was negative. It didn't feel good. I also would tell myself the story that I deserved nicer things than I could afford, right? There are lots of things in this life that I cannot afford. And sure, it would be nice to have them, but I was turning it into this negative thing. I work really hard and I deserve these nicer things that other people have. And that just didn't get me anywhere good. And the last one is I would tell myself, I'm not good with money. I had all of these stories that would play in my mind. I would sometimes say them out loud. I'm terrible with money. I'm not good with money. I hate money. All of this stuff was just really negative, and it was driving all of my decisions when it came to money. But over time, my mindset has shifted. And now I really think forward. I think about what I do have rather than what I don't have. I think about what my priorities are, what's most important to me. And I also think about what I want for my future. I think back in the days of real financial struggle for me, I wanted to think about my financial future, but that seemed so impossible to me because my future was literally making it to the next paycheck. So I couldn't think about planning for like my, things I wanted to do in the next 5-10 years, things I wanted to do in retirement. Like that was just so impossible for me to consider. But now that's something that's really on the forefront of my mind when I make financial decisions. So our mindset, it drives our relationship with money. If we've got that negative mindset, like I used to have, it's just going to be a constant power struggle with money. I was constantly fighting with my money. And it didn't feel good, right? It was very stressful and very overwhelming. But a positive mindset shifts everything. So instead of hating the money that I do have, I'm thinking about, how do I work with that money? How do I make the money that I do have work for what I want to do? And that mindset leads us into mindful money habits. So money habits are really personal, and I'm going to share some examples of money habits that I think are really valuable and important. But if you have different money habits that you value or things that you think are really important, I want you to focus on those and just use mine as a guide or an example. But money habits help us stay headed in the right direction, in the direction that we want to be going. And there's no right or wrong. It's just the habits that work best for you. So the 5 habits that I'm going to talk about in today's webinar are habit 1, embrace gratitude. Habit 2, focus on where your money goes. Habit 3, thoughtful spending. Habit 4, establish goals. And habit 5, set a budget and stick with it. So the first one we're going to talk about is embrace gratitude. So what this means to me is that I just really need to focus on being grateful for what I have. Instead of focusing on what I don't have or what I wish I had, I try very hard to focus on being grateful for what I do have. Now, I am not perfect at this. There are definitely days when I'm admiring something that I would love to have. But I also know that the primary focus for me is just being grateful for what I do have. I'm going to share an example. My car is older. I've had it for several years. It's paid off. But little things are starting to go wrong with it. Like there's these certain lights on the window roll-up buttons that aren't working anymore, and my key isn't working right with the computer. Like it's struggling, right? It's showing its age, but it's still a really good car. It still gets me where I need to go. It's really reliable. It's comfortable to drive. I really like my car. And so rather than feeling frustrated that I don't have a new car, I'm being grateful for what I do have. And we don't have a car payment for my car. So I'm also really grateful that that frees up money in our budget, because right now it just doesn't make sense to add a car payment into our monthly budget. So that's my example of embracing gratitude and how that is helping me with like a mindful money habit and not spending on a new car that I just don't really need right now. Habit number 2, focus on where your money goes. I think it is really important to track your spending. And if there's just one thing that I could encourage you to start doing at the end of this webinar, or when you're ready to really start building that financial confidence, it would be to track your spending, to write down every dollar you spend, where you spend it, and what you're spending it on, and look for patterns and habits. Are you always ordering out the last 2 or 3 days of the week? Are you shopping a lot when your significant other is out of town? Are you spending way more on groceries than you realized you are? Are you like, what habits and patterns can you see in that spending? And also add it up. Are you spending more than you realized? Because almost all the time, I could tell you an amount I thought I was spending, and almost all the time I'm spending more than that. Have you ever just had like money in your bag and then you just slowly spent it, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, where did that money go? Like, what did I even spend it on? And I've had that same experience with like my credit card balance. My credit card statement comes, we don't carry a balance on our credit card now, we pay it every month, but sometimes it comes and I'm like, what the heck did I buy? And I really have to go back and look because it just adds up so fast. So I think it's really, really valuable to track your spending and put that focus on where your money is going. Habit 3, thoughtful spending, and this kind of ties into habit 2. I really think it's valuable to be a thoughtful spender, to think before you spend every dollar, right? Do I really need this? Do I really want this? Is this something I love? Is this valuable? Is there a less expensive version of this that would still serve the purpose for me? I try to think about every dollar I spend. And when I do this, I spend far less. I have been really trying to do this. I feel I shared on social media, I think it was June, that I talked about being a thoughtful spender all month long on my social media. And so I've continued to do that over the last few months. And when you know that my credit card statement has been lower the last few months than it normally is. And I genuinely think it's because I have made a habit of consciously thinking before I spend every dollar. I'm looking for deals and ways to save. Even a few dollars here and there adds up over a whole month. So at the grocery store, I'm looking for deals and specials. Can I buy this instead of this and save a few dollars? When I'm ordering something online, I'm always looking for coupons and discount codes and things like that, because every dollar adds up, right? Every dollar I'm not spending is staying in my pocket and going towards those goals for me. And then I just think it's important to stay focused on your money mindset. That positive mindset really, really helps you when it comes to being thoughtful about your spending. Habit 4, establish goals. I think it's really important, and there's real value in setting short and long-term goals when it comes to lots of things in life, but in this case, in particular, your finances. It gives you something to work for, and it helps the decision-making process, and it keeps you focused. So short-term goals should be achievable within about a year. It could be something that you're working on for a week, like this week, I'm only gonna stop for coffee once, and that's my goal, that I'm only going to go once, and I'm going to save that money that I would normally go 3 or 4 times. Or it could be like something that you're going to try to achieve in a year, like have a certain amount of money saved up or pay down a balance of a credit card or something like that. Your goals always need to be written down, and you're going to use your goal to help you budget and guide your spending decisions. So I'm going to give you an example. The example goal is you want to create a $1,000 emergency fund. Now, I'm going to pause here and I'm going to address the word emergency. I never thought twice about this because an emergency fund for me just had a very clear meaning in my mind, and I didn't really associate it with anything like triggering or anxiety producing. But I recently learned that some people feel very anxious about the term emergency. So for the sake of the webinar, I'm going to continue to use the words emergency fund when I'm talking about this so that we're all very clear about what I mean. But you can choose a different term for it if that would be helpful to you. So you could call it your what if fund or your someday fund or whatever you want to call it. Just something to think about. If the word emergency just is really a turnoff for you, then come up with something that's more meaningful or helps you a little bit more. So back to our goal. Our sample goal is creating this $1,000 emergency fund. First, you're going to look at your budget and you're going to think, where can I pull some money so that I can start putting it towards this? Is there a place that I could spend a little less each month so that I can put this money toward my emergency fund? And then once you've looked at your budget and evaluated, you're going to decide how much you can set aside each month. So then you're going to say, okay, my goal is I'm going to put $100 towards this fund every month. And then again, you're going to remember that positive mindset. I'm working with my money. I'm working with the money that I have, and I am good with money, and I am confident about this, and I can make this work. So here is an example of how I might pull money for, or how, not me personally, we stay home a ton. We aren't going to happy hour twice a week. It probably sounds really fun. But let's say you go to happy hour twice a week. And you're thinking, you know what, to achieve this goal for this emergency fund, one of the places I could pull money from is to just go to happy hour once a week instead of twice, right? You're still getting to enjoy that time with your friends. You're still getting to be social, and you're still getting out. But you're applying half of that typical spending to your emergency fund. So you're making progress on your goal, but you're also still doing one of the things that brings you joy, being social and getting out with your friends. And then what I would encourage you to do, and what I try to do, is use my mindset shift to value the time that I'm home. So instead of feeling bad and bummed and disappointed that it's Thursday, and instead of being out at happy hour with my friends, I'm at home by myself, I'm going to think, you know what? I am killing this. I am hitting this goal. I'm doing a really good job. I am at home. I'm going to watch a movie that I love. I'm going to make a snack that I really enjoy. I'm going to invite a friend over to watch a movie with me. And I'm going to shift that mindset positive so that I'm valuing the time that I'm home, and I'm really focusing on my pride in myself and my confidence in building this emergency fund. And I'm reminding myself I'm still doing the thing I love. I'm still going to happy hour on Friday. I'm still getting out with my friends, but I'm also building up and working towards this goal. So it's all about kind of shifting that mindset. So let's talk about long-term goals. For long-term goals, I personally don't think there's a limit on the length, but you should have an end date. We've all heard of SMART goals, and one of the keys of a SMART goal is that it is a time, there's a time component. So it should have an end date. Again, every goal needs to be written down. Whatever goal it is you're working on, write it down. Makes it more meaningful if it's written down. And then you're going to use that goal to help you budget and guide your spending decisions. And you're going to use your mindset shift as a guide. So for my short-term goal, I was really more like looking at my budget and how can I finagle this? And for your long-term goal, that might be a piece of it, but you're also really going to have to make some thoughtful decisions about your spending. And so I'm going to give you an example of one of our long-term goals. So I don't have a specific, we haven't come up with a specific number, but we are working to have a significant retirement account balance because we have a goal of financial freedom in retirement. I would love if when we're retired and we've worked all these years, we can just spend freely without stress and worry and overwhelm. We can travel when we want to and go visit friends and family when we want to. And we can go enjoy the fancy meal when we want to, without really worrying about the budget. And so what that means is that now we have to make some sacrifices, right? So in those sacrifices, one of the things that we're doing this year is we are choosing not to go on a vacation. We have a couple of little weekend plans where we're going to go visit friends for like a short or a long weekend. And we have some friends and family who are coming to visit us here. And so we're still getting to see people and have little breaks from our normal routine, but we are saving the money that we would normally have spent on a bigger vacation. And so what we're doing is focusing on our gratitude and our mindset. We are super grateful for these weekends that we're going to be able to spend with friends and family. We are very grateful for the people who are coming to visit us. And our mindset is the future is really important. And that financial freedom when we are retired and we have the time freedom is something that we really value. So we are keeping our long-term goal in mind when we're making those larger spending decisions. And then habit number 5, set a budget and stick with it. Just start. If you've never set up a budget before, or if you're currently not operating with a budget, my best advice is just to start. list your expenses and the amount that you spend on each of those expenses every month. Keep track of your spending. And remember that budgets are working documents. They change. I used to, first of all, just make my budget up out of thin air. I would just write numbers down that seemed like they should be right. And then I would just feel like that had to stay how it was. And that made it very hard for me to A, stick with my budget, and B, think of a budget as a valuable tool. I just felt it frustrating and annoying. But if you remember that budgets are working documents, that things change over time, you might realize, you know what? We are cooking more at home, so we can up the grocery budget a little bit and decrease our dining out budget. You might get a new car and now your insurance payment has gone up and your car payment's gone up, so you need to adjust your budget for that. There's all kinds of things that happen. So just remember that your budget is a working document and you need to be able to change and flex it. And then a good budget builds confidence. As you create this budget and you stick with it and you start to realize ways that you can move the money from here to there, ways that you are saving, spending less, doing all these good things, and you can see the impact on your budget, that builds confidence when it comes to managing these basic personal finances. A budget is key. And so this kind of moves us to navigating that financial anxiety. So financial anxiety is a very common experience that everyone faces. I mean, I'm going to be bold and say everyone. I can't imagine, no matter who you are, that there hasn't been a time in your life when you experienced financial anxiety. And I want to acknowledge for you that it can be incredibly overwhelming. Maybe even just thinking about this topic while I'm speaking with you is overwhelming for you. But I know how it feels. It feels like a weight, and it's overwhelming. That's the best way to describe it. But there are strategies to combat it confidently. And so I want to talk about right now some common financial anxieties and then some practical strategies for managing them. So the first one I want to talk about is debt overload. There is just a huge, like the amount of debt in the United States and the average debt of people who live in the United States. I want to say, I should have looked up the number specifically for you, but I want to say it's like $10,000 is the average amount of household debt. And that can feel overwhelming if you're trying to pay off your debt while also trying to pay for your monthly expenses. And it causes a lot of anxiety. Another one is fear of the unknown. There are so many people who are worried about where their next paycheck will come from. What happens if they lose their job or get laid off? They don't have money set aside. So if the car breaks down or something goes wrong in the house or whatever, all of these unknown expenses and unknown sources of money coming in can lead to a lot of anxiety for people. It's also really stressful living paycheck to paycheck. I mentioned before that that is something I did for many, many years. And honestly, I don't know how I survived it. I think I did because I was young. If I was it was super overwhelming and very, very frustrating. I felt bad about myself and I felt stressed and overwhelmed on a monthly basis, waiting for that next paycheck to come in. And then the last one is comparison and social pressure. I know that a lot of people believe that this is even stronger now with social media, and that absolutely may be true. But I also grew up without social media, and I remember comparing myself and feeling that like social pressure to be able to keep up with my friends. Hey, we're going to go to Las Vegas for the weekend. Do you want to come? And I'm like, I really can't afford that. And sometimes I said no, and other times I swiped my credit card, right? And so there was this comparison and social pressure piece for me just from my surroundings. And so I imagine now with social media, there's also this kind of added component that just really feels overwhelming and stressful for people. So let's talk about some practical strategies for managing this stress. So budgeting and financial planning, some of the things that I've been talking about here, are really helpful tools when it comes to managing this anxiety. Having a plan makes us feel confident and it feels like we have a path. We know what the next step is. Not knowing that next step can really be overwhelming, right? That kind of unknown piece that we were talking about before. So having a budget, having a financial plan is really, really powerful. So getting that spending track, so that you see where your money's going, how much money you have coming in and going out, your budget, how much you're trying to spend on each thing every month. That will really help a lot. Second, getting that emergency fund set up. Knowing that you have this amount of money that you can fall back on or reach into if something comes up can really relieve some of that stress. I will tell you that the first time I got money in my savings, I just had a regular old savings account that I was putting money in when I could and trying really hard not to pull it out. And I got myself up to $500. And I remember just feeling two things. One, a huge sense of pride that I had finally put some money away and made that commitment to myself. And two, a huge weight came off my shoulders. Even though there are a whole bunch of things in life that cost far more than $500 that pop up as emergencies or unexpected expenses. For me, I just had this sense of relief, like, oh my gosh, if something small goes wrong with my car, I can fix it. If I need new tires, I've got the money for that. If I need to do a repair on my townhouse, I had owned a townhouse at the time, I have some money to help pay for that, right? So I knew even if I was going to have to reach for my credit card to cover the difference, I just felt such relief knowing that I at least had this little savings account that I could reach for if I needed. So getting that fund set up will really make a big difference. Next, debt management. So on my social media, I have been talking for the last week or so about creating your own very simple debt payoff plan. And much like with budgeting and financial planning, I really believe that having a plan set up for how you're going to pay off your debt is such a relief. Once I was able to get my debt down to one thing instead of for a long time I had multiple small credit cards, and then I got some of those paid off, and I just had one that I used for everything, and then I had this other line of credit that I used. And once I got that line of credit paid off and I just had the one credit card, it felt super powerful to me. Like, look at me, I've paid this one thing off. I managed to do that. And now I've got a plan for how I'm going to pay off this last balance of my credit card. So that debt management plan is key. So you can, if you're curious what I've been sharing, you can look for my videos on social media. I'm going to put my social media links up at the end. And you can also just email me and I'll send you the tips. Next, mindfulness and stress reduction. And this might be a little woo-woo for some of you, but there is real power in having tools in your pocket for the times that you feel the stress and anxiety rise, that you can grab for these tools and help bring it down so that you can then move forward. I know that when my anxiety and stress, whether it's about finances or something different, when it gets up to a level, I stop being able to think rationally and I have to do something to bring it down. So find something that works for you. Or if you already have some tools like me, but you forget to use them, kind of bring those back to the front of your mind. So some examples, find a quiet place and read for 10 minutes, go for a walk, put on some headphones and listen to some music, put on loud music and dance in your kitchen, whatever it is, watch a show for 30 minutes that takes your mind off the thing and then come back to it. Whatever it is, find some things that work for you. And when you feel that stress rising, grab for one of those tools and bring it down so that you can move forward. And then the last one, seek support. I was so embarrassed about the financial situation that I had gotten myself in that I absolutely refused to talk to anybody about it. I just pretended like things were fine by telling everyone that I hated money and I was terrible with it and I wasn't good at managing it. But I certainly wasn't telling anybody specifics and I wasn't asking for help. But the truth is, there are people in my corner who would have helped me. My mom how I did not absorb this from her, I am not sure, is amazing with money. And I absolutely could have sat down with her, laid it all out on the table and been like, here's where I'm at, Mom. Can you help me like get a plan? Can you help me put this together? Because I'm too overwhelmed to see it for myself. I had friends who I absolutely could have said, look, I know you guys are way better at money than me, and I just need some help getting this, like getting a plan together. Can you help me? And I know people would have helped me, but I was just too embarrassed to ask. So seek support. Find a financial planner, a financial coach, a friend, a family member, somebody. That is a really important piece. So building financial confidence isn't about having all the answers. I hope you didn't hear me say that today. I hope you heard me say that it is about having a good mindset, a positive mindset, and the tools to kind of navigate the challenges that are going to pop up. I emailed you a digital workbook earlier today, and in the digital workbook, our tool, I don't know why I put tools and resources on the top of this slide because they're like the last page of the workbook, but there are tools and resources in there that you can use. The workbook can be printed out or you can use it digitally. What I will say is on the tools and resources page, you will find clickable links. So you can click them to open up PDFs that I've shared with you, and you can click them to take you to the website. So even if you print it out, you might want to save those links and those clickables in there. You'll also find pages with prompts and activities to support taking steps towards gaining financial confidence. Things like goal setting and focusing on your money mindset and some money habits that you want to work on. Next steps. So if this resonated with you and you were like, okay, I'm kind of ready to move forward, I've got some things I'm going to start working on, but I'm ready for a next step. I am relaunching my course. I have a digital course in October. It's called Know Your Worth: 4 Simple Steps to Help Take Control of Your Finances. It is a 90-minute online course. You can do it completely at your own pace. It's broken up into 4 modules where I teach tools to help you effectively track your spending, create a practical budget, move on to paying off your debt, and then establishing savings once you get that stuff handled. So you can watch all 90 minutes of the course at once. You can watch all 90 and then go back to each module as you kind of get each section managed in and set up for yourself. You will have access to it for as long as you need. And so it's a really good tool. I'm going to launch the course for $97, and everyone who reserved a seat for this webinar, so even if you're watching this on the recording, as long as you reserved a seat, you will receive a discount code for $27 off. And so watch your email for the details about the course and when it launches and the code. I'm also going to offer a second chance for a discount. If you share a specific code with a friend and they sign up, then I will also have a gift for you. So now, what questions do you have for me? Is there any question that I can answer for you while we are all still here? So one question that I've been asked is, do I have any suggestions for starting a budget for the first time? So if you've never started a budget before, my best advice is to realize, hold on, let me back it up. My number one tip is for you to just know that you're not going to get your budget set up in 1 month. You're going to take some time and write down all of your expenses. And it's going to take you a minute. You might have some expenses that you forget about. And then you're like, the next month, you're like, oh, shoot, I only pay my, insurance every 3 months. I've got to get that on there. Or there might be certain bills that you have that change over the course of time, whatever it is. So, but to start, you're just going to list every single payment that you have and how much it is, and payments, right? Like things that are fixed. And then you're also going to have things like groceries and dining out budget and household needs and all of that. And you're just going to get it listed out, whether you put it on a piece of notebook paper, or you type it in a Google Doc or an Excel spreadsheet, or on my tools resources page, I shared a couple of things. Like if you're somebody who operates best with like cute notebooks and pretty things, there's options there for you, but just get everything written down and then just keep looking at it every month, because it will take a minute for you to realize, okay, hold on, these things can get grouped together. These things really need to come out and be separate. And you're just going to have all of these line items as part of your budget. And don't panic. Like we did ours and I was like, man, this is long. This is a lot of stuff. And it has just changed over time. We've been able to consolidate, put some things together, be like, you know what, these are all kind of the same thing. And then other things we decided to separate so that over time we could see how much we were spending on each specific thing. So my best advice is just list everything out and then know in your mind, it is going to take more than 1 month to actually say, okay, I've confidently got my budget set up. I would say 2 to 3 months just to like have something that you're working with moving forward. All right, let me see. I think I have another question here. When will the course launch? Is there a specific day that you need to sign up to get the discount? So my course is going to launch on October 20th. And you can use the discount code that I send you between the 20th and the 27th. So you'll have a whole week that you can sign up and use the discount code. And then same for inviting a friend, and I will make sure you have all that information in plenty of time. All right. And then one last question. What are some things that I could share with my high school aged kids about money and budgeting? So I just think that there used to be this stigma that you don't talk about money, you don't share about money, you don't tell your kids how much money you make. Like I know that was something that we talked about in our house. But I really think it is okay to share with your kids, maybe not specifics, but help them understand like how your budget works. Like we have this much money set aside for groceries, and we have this much money set aside for your sports or, your hobbies or whatever it is, and kind of talk them through that process of budgeting each month and then taking the money that you have and keeping track and making sure you're not spending more than you have. I would also, so just kind of like sharing bits and pieces of your budget so that they can start to like internalize like how a budget works and how that would work for them. I also think it's really important for kids to have money to practice with. So whether you're giving them an allowance or they have a job, I would help them think about what percentage of money they want to spend, what percentage of money they want to save for like a rainy day fund, and what percentage of money they want to save for a long-term plan, whether they're saving for a car or for college, or if they're like a long-term mindset and they're like, someday I want to buy a house and I want to start saving for that now. Set up like percentages with them and help them put that money away. There are also a bunch of apps that are great for kids that they can just put on their phone and put their money in there and start categorizing it and saving it. And there are apps that are even great for elementary school and middle school kids. So those are the things I would share with them. One last thing is credit score. I did not talk about that today at all, but it's really a good way. You can just Google ways to help my teenager start to establish a credit score, because without a credit score, it's really hard for them to establish lines of credit to buy cars and houses and all of those things as they get older, once they get out of school, whether your kiddo is just going to move straight into a job straight out of high school, or whether they're going to go to college. At some point, they're going to need to borrow money, and it's good to help them kind of start to establish credit. All right, so thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really, really grateful that you signed up and that you trusted me with some of your time to learn from my experiences and the things that I've learned over the last several years. And I would love if you follow me on social media if you don't already. And if someone shared this with you and you are not already on my email list, then be sure to ask them for the information on there. They can just even email me your email address and I will get you added. So thank you so much and good luck.